Hi, everybody. Today we are talking about something that I suffered from, and now I can lean back and say, well, I've had 3 kids and I got over it, but PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome. This is the #1 cause of infertility, and it was causing me infertility issues, and I definitely needed some help getting pregnant. But if I knew then what I know now, it would have been corrected and I would have had no issue. Polycystic ovarian syndrome is a metabolic condition. It's actually not a disease. It plagues all young people. Most people or most women get diagnosed with it because they're trying to get pregnant and they have a hard time. It affects up to 30% of women today. I actually think that statistic is low because the most common cause is insulin resistance, which is skyrocketing, not just in adults, but in kids as well. And I was diagnosed over 20 years ago. The doctor never gave me a reason, only gave me some fertility drugs, which worked for me, and acne medication. And this is before I knew I shouldn't be taking any of that, and gave me no hope for reversing it. But you know what? It is the easiest thing to reverse. And I've always talked about 2 things that cause most chronic issues. What are they? Insulin resistance and toxicity. So what are the symptoms of PCOS? Let's start with that. You have missed periods, irregular periods, or very light periods. One study shows that if you're having less than 9 periods a year, then that categorizes you as possibly having PCOS. The ovaries that are large, or they might have many cysts. So what happens is when you look at the ovary that is supposed to let go of one dominant egg at the end, right, as you're about to cycle, instead of that one dominant egg dropping, you've got all of these little eggs that never grow into one dominant one, and then none of them drop. And that's where they get the name polycystic. But what are some other symptoms? Excess body hair and not in the right places, including your chest, your stomach, your back, weight gain, especially around the belly, acne or oily skin, male pattern baldness or thinning hair. This is something that affected me. Infertility, small pieces of excess skin on the neck or armpits, which is called skin tags. Now, ironically, what are skin tags also a symptom of? Insulin resistance. Imagine that. Dark or thick skin patches on the back of the neck, in the armpits, or under the breast. What is that another symptom of other than PCOS? Insulin resistance. Imagine that. All of these things are. So you obviously are getting an understanding of where I'm going with this. The root cause of PCOS is an excess of insulin or hyperinsulinemia. And most of the symptoms above are also the symptoms of insulin resistance. Now, here is my levels continuous blood glucose monitor. I've been wearing it for the last 2 days. Some of the information I don't want to know, because even though I eat a very high protein, low carb diet, I exercise, I infrared sauna, I do all the things that I tell you to do, I am just prone to having high blood sugar. But what was interesting in the first day, my blood sugar was way too high, and I'm sitting here going, this does not make sense. Well, stress was part of the issue because I was stressed out that I was being tested. I had this underlying consciousness of being tested 24/7 that was causing my blood sugar and my blood glucose to go high because my cortisol was high. So it's not even just from the food you're eating that could be causing blood glucose to be high. But what's interesting here, and I told you, Michael, that we would be talking about things that would affect men in this talk as well, not just PCOS for women, but in men, they aren't at risk for PCOS, obviously, but erectile dysfunction is a direct symptom of insulin resistance as well, where insulin is not able to promote sufficient vasodilation. In PCOS, it is hyperinsulinemia, where the insulin inhibits the conversion of testosterone into estrogens as it's meant to do so. So some of the testosterones in a female body are supposed to switch or convert into estrogen. And in PCOS, because of the hyperinsulinemia, it doesn't happen. And this leaves high levels of testosterone in a woman's body. Now, I'm the first person to say that testosterone feels good. I love testosterone. It's what gets me going in the morning. It's what makes me want to do these videos and work out and have the energy to go, go, go. But obviously there needs to be a balance with estrogen and progesterone and all the sex hormones. So the PCOS is also sometimes referred to as diabetes of the ovaries. So just as Alzheimer's and dementia are also known as type 3 diabetes or diabetes of the brain, PCOS is referred to as diabetes of the ovaries. So this is such good news. Why is this good news? Because for the doctors out there that are saying there's no cause of PCOS, they're wrong. It's actually very simple. We need to correct the insulin resistance, and that's not difficult to do. Every cell in the body responds to insulin in some way, and the ovaries are no different. Female fertility, let's go through this without PCOS. So what is normal fertility? The female fertility relies on the sex hormone FSH, follicle stimulating hormone, creates a rise in estrogen, and LH, which is luteinizing hormone, which creates a rise in progesterone. These come from the hypothalamus to the pituitary and then down to the ovary. Progesterone will remain high if pregnancy occurs. FSH creates the follicles for eggs, which were created before birth. We were all born with a set number of eggs. Okay, so a few become activated until one becomes that dominant egg and becomes a follicle stimulated by FSH. Then ovulation is stimulated by LH surge, and the egg is released down the fallopian tube into the uterus and ready for the sperm, and voila, we're pregnant. Now, when you are suffering from PCOS, it's different. The hyperinsulinemia and the insulin resistance causes a complete dysregulated issue with the female hormones, and you will have long or infrequent cycles. And so what happens is you'll have hyperandrogenism or high testosterone. All women, as I mentioned, have testosterone, and all of the estrogen is converted from testosterone. There's an enzyme called aromatase that converts testosterone into estrogen. High levels of insulin at the ovaries limit the testosterone's ability to convert into estrogen, leading to these high levels of testosterone and androgens. As a result, that's why you get facial hair, male pattern baldness, all of those things. All of the ovary follicles waiting to become the dominant follicle fail to do so with that lack of estrogen spike. And the excess estrogen is leading to all of those symptoms I also already mentioned, including the lack of menstruation and hair in all the wrong places and not where we want it. Then you've got the so many cysts on the ovaries, and normally when the woman develops the one dominant follicle, the other follicles are supposed to go through apoptosis, and you've heard me talk about that word with iodine, because iodine does apoptosis in a healthy way program cell death. That means it kills off the cells that are meant to die. Okay, so we then have these other follicles that are meant to die through apoptosis, and they dissolve. With PCOS, this doesn't occur, and irregular menstruation doesn't happen as well. And as a result, there's this buildup of a uterine lining without it being shed on a monthly basis, and the cells can become precancerous or cancerous. So some people with PCOS who are not trying to get pregnant are like, oh, this is great. I'm not having a cycle. I don't really want one anyways. Well, that buildup of the uterine lining is obviously not healthy as well. So it is something to be concerned about. Here's the good news. How do we reverse PCOS? And number one, you want to reduce the starches and the dairy in your diet. According to a study, following a low starch and low dairy diet for 8 weeks, the participants lost an average of 19 pounds. Their fasting glucose reduced by 9 points, and fasting insulin was cut in half. And there was an improvement in insulin sensitivity and a reduction in testosterone in women with PCOS. This is away from all of the other tools that I'm going to give you. That was just from reducing the carbs and the dairy. Next, of course, is the accelerated keto. This is a no-brainer. So when I started the keto supplement and intermittent fasting, my PCOS went away. And I can tell you with my continued glucose monitor on me, day 2 and 3, my blood sugar is now in a really good level after I let go of the stress and said, Sarah, just calm down. It's okay that you're being tested 24/7. So the accelerated keto puts your body into ketosis and fat burning mode within 30 minutes. So with that, your appetite's totally in control. Well, now we're not going to be craving the sugar and the carbs that drive up our blood glucose and our insulin. We're going to be able to intermittent fast super easily, which is also just with intermittent fasting. Even if you kept the carbs in your body or in your diet, that helps regulate your glucose levels. So that is a huge thing. And just by taking the accelerated keto, you're able to intermittent fast really well. I had a client last week, day 3 of the Ascent Diet Cleanse. She said, oh my gosh, Sarah, this is crazy. I haven't eaten and it's 3 p.m. and I actually don't even feel like I want to eat, but should I? You listen to your body. Your body's telling you to write it out because it's doing a whole bunch of cleanup and autophagy and that apoptosis, all of this cleaning up of the diseased and damaged cells and the inflammation in the body. That inflammation is causing other hormonal issues that I'm going to get into in a couple of weeks, like endometriosis and estrogen dominance. All of these things are related. So PCOS is just another form of hormonal imbalance. And you can apply this to a man with his hormonal imbalance. I've got clients that are men that have plenty of testosterone, but they also have too much estrogen. So they're suffering from estrogen dominance. They're eating all the right foods. They're working out. They don't understand why their bodies don't look any better with that great amount of testosterone they have. Well, that estrogen dominance is causing another issue where it's creating the man boobs and the lack of muscle tone and the belly fat. That belly fat is from cortisol and that stress, which also drives up your glucose and your blood sugar, even when you're not eating anything. So this applies to men and women. Everything that I'm talking about here, that accelerated keto also is going to help with defatting the liver. And that is where your fat burning occurs and the hormones are regulated and the sugars are processed. If your liver is clogged, then you could have spikes of glucose, as my glucose monitor is telling me, in the middle of the night. If that's happening, that could mean that your liver is not processing the glucose that you have stored in your muscle tissues in the middle of the night. So if you're like me doing a CGM and your levels are actually higher in the middle of the night, it is a sign that you need a liver flush, and I'm due for one myself. You need them about 3 to 4 times a year because of all the toxins and foods that we're eating that are causing an overburdening of our liver. So you need you don't need to eat a high fat diet to use the accelerated keto. Yeah, I will talk about the diet in a little bit, but you just need it to help you intermittent fast and get yourself into a level where you're leveling out your insulin sensitivity or increasing your insulin sensitivity and leveling out your blood glucose. The next supplement I've been using with every meal, and it's been a game changer. It's called berberine HCl. And I'm sure you've heard of a lot of diabetics or insulin resistant people using metformin. Well, did you know metformin can actually cause muscle wasting? And there are some side effects. Berberine is the natural alternative to metformin with none of the side effects. It helps support pathogenic and bacterial balance. So it's helping with your gut and the gut pathogens that I talk about, like E. coli and salmonella, but it's also improving blood sugar, insulin sensitivity. And then the HCl part is helping break down the proteins and the fats that you are eating in your body, helping with digestion and weight management. And it's a game changer. It really helps. I have a lot of clients that say they just don't eat a lot of protein. And Sarah, you're talking about all this wild animal protein. What do I do? That berberine HCl really helps with breaking down the proteins that you may not be used to eating. Okay, next, acceleradine. Why? Acceleradine helps stabilize your blood sugar, improve insulin sensitivity, increase your mood, and increase physical and mental energy. Most sugar cravings that you're suffering from that are going to cause PCOS are linked to lower mood, lower energy, that blood sugar that you just can't get a hold of. So it is really helpful with all of those things. And it also has been shown to get a diabetic out of a diabetic crisis if their blood sugar is too high. So it on its own can help lower your blood sugar, which helps with PCOS. It also has been shown to be really important with endometriosis and some of the other symptoms from estrogen dominance. And I'll get into that in a couple of weeks. So not only is acceleradine helpful with blood sugar, but it's also antiviral, antifungal, antibacterial, antimicrobial, it's anti-inflammatory, it's an antioxidant. All of that is important too, because did you know if you have the wrong bacteria or viruses in your gut, that can actually trip your blood sugar to rise as well, even without eating sugar. Our system is a very complicated, intricate system. And then it also helps trigger that apoptosis that I mentioned before, which will also help with PCOS. And because the cravings that you get that are connected to malnutrition, as the body's seeking out more food to satisfy those cravings, the acceleradine is helpful in that it helps assimilate the key minerals such as calcium, B12, D, and all the others. And no other iodine supplement is enhanced with that scalar frequency to reverse the damage done to the DNA by the mRNA, spiked proteins, and graphene oxide we're being exposed to. It's radiation free, which most supplements or iodine supplements are full of radiation because of Fukushima. And the sea vegetables that we used to get our iodine from, they're full of radiation. And most iodine supplements only have a 10 to 20% bioavailability or absorption rate, where acceleradine is 100% bioavailable. Okay, so what's next? Accelerated ancient salt. I love this salt because it's not just any salt. It's full of 62 minerals. So we're talking about the potassium and the magnesium and over 62 minerals, not just sodium. Most salts out there are stripped of all the other minerals and just sodium. That's why you get bloated. I have a friend that literally can gain 7 to 9 pounds of water from one restaurant meal. And she says that my accelerated salt is the only salt she is able to use. And that's because it is not just sodium. But you can use this salt to satisfy your appetite when you have a sugar craving. Just put it on your tongue. You can also use it when you're nauseous. If you're nauseous, remember that's probably because your liver's backed up and you're eating too much fat, and your liver and gallbladder can't break down those fats. So the salt helps with emulsifying the fat and also with the nausea. It's also able to lower your blood sugar and improve insulin sensitivity. That's why the acceleradine and the accelerated ancient salt are paired together, and they really are a magical duo. It also has a strong negative charge. What does that mean? It pulls out the positive charged toxins, parasites, and undigested fats. So it's really important for that. It also helps detox your body because it's enhanced with that scalar frequency to create just reorganize the DNA and give you that detoxification, but rehydration of the cells at that cellular level. So helps with appetite control and sugar cravings, alleviates nausea, and helps reduce blood sugar. Also a great source of electrolytes and breaking down that undigested fats. Next is the quintessential, and this is kind of for the same reason as the accelerated ancient salt. That hydration and electrolytes can satisfy sugar cravings, and a lot of your cravings are because you're craving salt, but there's that mixed wiring that happens from the gut to the brain where you're craving salt, but your body thinks you're craving sugar. And so you try to satisfy it through sugar, ingesting sugar. That's why a lot of people will get into a sugar binge, but then need some potato chips after that, and then the Ben & Jerry's, and then the potato chips, and going back and forth with the sugar and the salt because of that mixed wiring in your brain. So when you satisfy your hydration at the cellular level with the accelerated ancient salt and the quintessential, then the sugar cravings go down, insulin sensitivity improves, normal digestion improves, and you feel a lot better. Next is something called choline and inositol. This may help facilitate the burning of stored body fat, and also has been shown to prevent abnormal or excessive liver accumulation of cholesterol and triglycerides. It also helps with insulin sensitivity and hormonal balance in people with PCOS. This was prescribed to my daughter and myself when we were first we both had the PCOS, and my daughter is on that road as well. She is benefiting from my knowledge and hitting it when she's a teenager, where I really had no idea about it until I was trying to get pregnant in my 20s. I wish I had known. So that choline and inositol is very helpful. Then, as I mentioned, with the accelerated keto, just by intermittent fasting and consuming your food within 2 to 8 hours, the body's able to lower its state of insulin resistance and blood sugar. And with the help of accelerated keto, it's super easy to do. And that will help improve the hormonal balances in cases of PCOS and trigger many anti-aging mechanisms as well. Then when you do break your fast, you want to focus on the wild animal protein and the wild fish. Why? Because healthy fats and proteins provide the needed nutrients for the hormonal balance in those with PCOS and stabilize the blood sugar and encourage the insulin sensitivity. And then what else happens when you're eating those wild animal proteins is that hormone called CCK in your gut is released, and that tells your brain, oh, well, I've had plenty to eat. I've got all the nutrients I need. I don't need to eat any more food, and I'm going to suppress my appetite. That CCK is only triggered by amino acids from wild animal protein and omega-3 fatty acids. So you're not going to get that from the potato chips or the ice cream. That's why you can feel full, have a bite of ice cream, and then all of a sudden your appetite increases. Next, you can use lemon, lime, or apple cider vinegar when you're in your drinks, just a little bit at the same time or before you eat a meal, and that will blunt the rise of glucose in your blood. And with that slower rise in blood glucose, insulin sensitivity is improved. Next is sleep. And I honestly think this was part of the reason that when the first day I put my blood glucose monitor on, that my numbers were out of whack, was I didn't sleep that well that night. If your body fails to get sufficient sleep, your blood glucose will rise. Absolutely. Your ghrelin, which is your hunger hormone, will also rise, causing your cravings to increase. So not only are your cravings going to increase, but just without eating, your blood glucose is going to rise because your cortisol, your stress hormone, had already increased that blood glucose. So it's a double whammy. And that's where you're going to get a huge rise in your blood glucose from both of them. Lastly, walk for 10 minutes after each meal. I did this, and my goodness, it brought my blood glucose down to a normal range very, very quickly, because it's lowering your cortisol and it's lowering your the rise, or it blunts the rise in glucose and helps with that insulin resistance. So those are my tips for PCOS. I will be discussing more information on hormonal imbalances in general, testosterone in men, estrogen dominance in men and women, endometriosis, but a lot of the things we just talked about are going to apply to all of those things as well. So if you have any questions, put them in the chat, or you can actually comment when this is uploaded to the to YouTube. You can comment below or email me through the website, or put it in the group coaching chat. And please share this with a few of your friends. I actually know more women with PCOS than I know women without PCOS. So that tells you how many people need to hear this information. Please share it out, and also invite your friends and family to the group coaching. It's free. There's no downside, no obligation. It's just a place to learn and to ask your questions. And the link will be below in the description when this is posted. And thank you, everybody. I hope you have a great Monday afternoon, and we will see you next week.